Hello friends, I'm Beansy, and if you're new here, I'm all about video games, books, self-care and balance, and just all around making time for yourself and your hobbies. But I'm also a new mom. I recently had my first daughter back in July, and we're welcoming our second this August, and I have just been loving being a mom, and one of the things that I have always looked the most forward to about being a parent was indoctrinating all my children into the world of nerd and getting them into the little fandoms and stuff that I like, but being intentional about it. So obviously I've already started on my game plan for that. So I decided to share some of the little tidbits and pieces of media that I plan to share first with my kids, just to help you and give you an idea of what maybe you can bond with your kids over. The main reason that I wanted to make this video was because I feel like having a genuine common interest with your kids is such a lifelong way to just connect with them and bond with them forever. Like, it was my parents that introduced me to the world of Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Pirates of the Caribbean, stuff that we all still love to this day. And like, my dad was always a huge gamer, and he's the one that got me into gaming, so that kind of holds a special place in my heart. And he saw like the benefits for kids playing video games instead of focusing on the cons, like it causes violence. Which, to be fair, I've been playing games pretty much my whole life, and I will still reload if somebody disapproves or if I hurt somebody's feelings. So I don't know, that's a toss-up to me. So here are my picks for the games, books, movies, and other miscellaneous things that I think are great introductions to the world of gaming and having shared adventures with your kids. And it's gonna be stuff that's fun, cozy, and creative with like depth and story, but also like it's intentional. Like, why are we introducing it? Is it just because you like it, or is it because they can actually learn something and gather something from it? So if you're just wanting some wholesome screen time that actually adds to your joy, this list is a great place to start. Let's get into it. So for the first category, I have consoles. I have gone back and forth, and I still have not made a decision entirely. I'm stuck between starting them on the DS or the Switch. So my reasoning for choosing a handheld is because I like the simplicity and the basics of it. And that's why I'm also kind of leaning more towards a DS. I don't have my DS anymore, unfortunately, but I like that you can just pop the cartridge in and the game is starting. Like, you don't have to log in, you don't have to do a whole lot of reading. It's just get up and go. And I think that that's a really good way to introduce kids into gaming. The Switch would obviously be my second choice. That's gonna be their generation of handheld game. The DS was mine. Like, that would be like my parents giving me an Atari or something and being like, it's awesome. Like, yeah, it is, but there's better things now. You just liked it because that's what you had as kids. So I think the Switch is great because it's a good way to get the entire family involved. Like, especially if you have a regular Switch and not just a Switch Lite, you can dock it to your TV and everyone can play together. Or if your children are a little more reserved or introverted, they can still game and be in their own little world, but they can be next to you, and maybe you're all in the living room doing your various things, but you're all sharing the same space. And I think that that's really important and special. But here is a little handy dandy pros and cons list of the consoles, the DS versus the Switch. Like I said, I have not made a decision fully on this. It's just something that I'll decide on the day. I mean, I've got a few years to decide, so. But I'm definitely starting with a handheld, and then we'll graduate into more complex consoles, like actual consoles like PlayStation or Xbox, and then eventually the PC. I also think it's a great way to protect your kids. As somebody that had pretty much free reign to the internet from a very young age, if you know, you know. Like, I definitely was seeing things and being exposed to things that I probably shouldn't have seen at such a young age. And so limiting the amount of internet access on their gaming device, I think, is a great way to just keep them young and keep them innocent for as long as you can. I mean, we're going so fast in how kids are developing, and I mean, we're pretty much skipping the tween years. Like, we're going straight from kid to teen. So prolonging that kid and the innocent part of their life is very, very important to me. And so now let's get into the bread and butter of this video, which is the games. Now, these are the games that I'm going to just start them out and kind of dip their toes into the world of gaming. And this list kind of coincides with my top 5 games that made me a cozy gamer. So if you want to hear a little more about the games in depth, I'll link that below and you can go watch that after you're done watching this one. But for starters, I am going to start the kids on Minecraft. I feel like this is kind of an obvious one. Like, yeah, kids like Minecraft, but there are a ton of benefits for kids starting out and learning to play video games with Minecraft. I listened to this podcast. It's called the Stuff You Should Know podcast. It's one of my absolute favorites. The way that the hosts talk about all these different topics, it's always interesting and funny. And they did one on Minecraft at one point, and I listened to it, and they talked a lot about the benefits of Minecraft for kids and how it explores their creativity and challenges them to problem solve. And since it's not a narrative driven game, it's really just up to them and how they want to play, and it helps you kind of see what they value and how they have fun. At one point in the podcast, they're like, I know it's probably on the TV, you know, in the background when your kids are playing, but just take 15 minutes to watch what they're doing. It's actually really interesting. I think it breeds creativity, and it just allows their little minds to explore possibilities and be in their own little imagination. The next game on the list is going to be pretty much any of the Lego games, but most specifically the Lego Hobbit, Lego Harry Potter, and for my husband's sake, Lego Star Wars. I was never a Star Wars person. This list is for things to bond with your kids over. So if someone in the household really loves Indiana Jones, I would suggest getting that one because it introduces them into that kind of world, and it'll be familiar whenever you choose to introduce the actual movie to them. Then it gives them a chance to explore that world on their own, and I think that that's really special. And the games are cute and they're hilarious, but I'm pretty sure there's no like voice acting or anything. It's just kind of like sounds and gestures and facial expressions, and they're so funny. And it's another game that you can play together co-op. That's actually one of my favorite games that me and my husband have played together, is the Lego game. And then we're going to talk about this universe a little more in the upcoming category, but I fully plan to introduce my kids to the Tales of the Shire video game. Now, at the time that this is being filmed, it is not out yet, but I have seen a lot of gameplay of like the first hour-ish whenever they did that event where they let the creators play it, and I think it is the perfect little life sim to get your kids into life sims, especially if you're planning on introducing them into the Lord of the Rings world or Hobbit world, because A, they get to explore Hobbiton, and who doesn't love Hobbiton? I would watch the first like 30 minutes of the first movie, and like if I put it on in the background, that was pretty much all I was watching, and I realized it's because I like the Shire. I love the ambiance and the community and just the state of being when you're in Hobbiton. In this game specifically, it is very community and friendship focused. So you're learning about your neighbor and what they like and how you can, for lack of better words, serve them. How can you make them happier? How can you just bring a little joy into their day? So you'll cook for them and like cook their favorite meals and be intentional with what you're putting in based on their likes. And then you're also going out and foraging and exploring and all of the fun hobbitsy things that we're gonna actually be doing in real life. And I just love that it focuses on being a good friend and being a good citizen, basically. So the next is a family favorite, obviously, and that's Mario Kart. It's wholesome, it's nostalgic, and it's one of those that feels like it's just as fun for adults as it is for the kids. And I think this is another great one that can kind of teach them those fine hand motor skills just for using the controller, and I think that the mechanics are super simple. And it's also a good way to teach sportsmanship and kind of get an idea of what kind of sport your kid is. Like maybe they're just kind of laissez-faire and they're like, I'm here to have fun, I'm here to race, I don't really care about winning a whole lot. It's like great if I do, but it's not a huge deal if I don't. Or you might have a very competitive kid and that like they will devote their whole personality to like being the best at Mario Kart and winning the family tournaments. So I really like that it kind of opens a window into what kind of competitor they are. So I've almost been just as excited to talk about this as I was the game, but here are some of the movies and shows and books. I kind of lumped them all together because I don't have like a whole lot on this list. But for starters, as we were just talking about the world of Tolkien and the Lord of the Rings universe, I am over the moon excited to read this gorgeous, beautiful book to my kids. I'm so excited. I remember seeing this in Barnes & Noble when I was like 18 or 19, and I was like, okay, so I have to buy that for my kids. Obviously, I didn't have kids at the time, so I put off buying it, and I put off buying it, and pretty much the minute that I found out I was pregnant with my first, I was like, you know what, I have to go purchase not a bassinet, not a crib, not diapers, this book. I have to go purchase this book for them. And the reason is because it is just, the art style it's so stylized and woodland, and I think it's just such a great fit for the Hobbit story itself. And it's also kind of like a little hack. And so it's kind of like a sneaky way to also get your reading in, but you're sharing it with your kids. Like, yeah, I'm reading my book, but I'm also like getting the story time with them. So I think that that is just an extra added bonus. And then I don't have the physical copy of this book anymore, but kind of akin to The Hobbit, and one that I think is better to start, The Adventures of Tom Bombadil is such a beautiful addition to your Tolkien world. The writing style is playful and witty and very lyrical, and it's not like it's not plot driven to it, but it's still fun. And I have found that it's actually very easily read aloud. But my parents were huge Tolkien fans, so I'm excited to like pass that down. And it's full of themes like bravery and friendship and doing what's right and standing up for what's right. But also it explores some more nuanced categories like femininity and masculinity. But it's just a story that feels magical but also deeply human. And now these two books are gonna kind of go hand in hand like the last two did. It's like younger kids and then the older kids. So obviously we have to introduce them to the magical world of Harry Potter. And I think there might only be like 5 or 6 like short stories, and I think the stories are funny and they're very easily digestible and they're fun. And also because whenever I'm just imagining in the future, whenever we're watching the movies and they get to the 7th movie where they're talking about Molly Weasley reading this book to her kids, like they're gonna also relate to that, like, oh, my mom did that too. So I'm really excited about that. And then specifically the illustrated versions of Harry Potter. And then as an adult, I tried to go back and reread them, and I just remember thinking like, wow, the writing style on this is very British. It's very BBC, and I almost couldn't get into it. I was like, I know I love the story, obviously, like Harry Potter has been one of my comfort pieces of media for as long as I can remember. Like, why am I not connecting with it? So halfway through, I switched and borrowed my friend's copy of the illustrated versions, and let me tell you, it completely changed the vibe of the entire story. I don't know what it was about it, but just the art style and maybe having like a more playful image of the characters and settings. Like, I guess I was imagining the movies so where it's super realistic, but the illustrations in here are very playful. They're very whimsical. Like, oh my gosh, look how beautiful that is. Just having the illustrations just completely changed the entire vibe. Is that they're very autumnal coded. So I'm like really, really excited to read them during the fall. And oh, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm so excited about it. The last book on the list is going to be this Irish collection. It's a treasury of Irish fairy tales and folk tales. For one, look how beautiful. I love like gold and silver inlays like that. It is a very beautiful book. But aside from that, obviously, based on my complexion, I am from Irish descent. And I think it's really important for people to be intentional with connecting with some of the same stories that your ancestors heard long, long time ago, and just kind of connecting with that part of your past. Even if it's not something most of these I've never heard, they're not nostalgic for me in any way. Some of them are dark and some of them are weird. But I mean, people used to tell like the Brothers Grimm stories to their kids, so I think it's gonna be okay. And I think it was the late great Jim Henson that that believed that kids should be scared at some points. That was actually another Stuff You Should Know podcast. I listened to it on, I can't remember if it was the Muppets themselves or just Jim Henson, but yeah, like the creator of the Muppets, Sesame Street, all that stuff. He also created really weird and whimsical stories like Labyrinth and The Dark Crystal, and I mean, they can get kind of scary, for lack of a better word, especially to little kids. But 100% I would recommend reading the story yourself before you just start jumping in and reading it to your kid, because there's really no telling what is going to be in these fairy tales. Like, just because they're fairy tales and folk tales, that does not all mean that they're kid friendly. So just be careful. So next on the list is going to be Adventure Time, and anyone who knows me personally knows Adventure Time was pretty much my personality. I mean, my second daughter's name is Bonnabelle, so that kind of gives you kind of clues you in to how much I just truly adore this series. And it's not just because of nostalgia or I just think it's cute. There's so much into this show, and I'm about to get into that a little. So Adventure Time was something that I kind of watched casually growing up, and I would, like, if it was on Cartoon Network on cable, I would just like, yeah, let's watch Adventure Time. But I remember specifically where I was and what I was doing when an episode came on. I was rewatching it on Hulu as I think I was a senior in high school. And I remember looking up from my phone because it was just kind of on in the background. And I remember seeing the scene and being like, what possibly could be the context in this kid's show for this scene to be on the screen right now? And so that kind of piqued my curiosity, it piqued my interest. And so I really started rewatching it and started paying attention to all the little details. And people make like lengthy YouTube videos on all of the little Easter eggs, and they would analyze these, especially the more like pivotal episodes, but they would analyze these episodes, and the creators put so much thought and love into this show, and I think that that is why it spoke to me so much. But this show personally helped me get through it helped me navigate some really heavy things in my life, like breakups and loss and grief and dealing with like tough situations with parents and even diving into some existentialism. I loved the whimsy and the possibilities of the show. Like, you really never knew what was going to be on screen. And some of the episodes are literally just so deep. Some of these episodes are so deeply analyzed because they're so profound and symbolic and meaningful. And I also learned a lot of like personal lessons from this show. And Jake saying like the only constant is change, or as long as I know the shape of my soul, I'll be okay. Like, there's just some of those episodes that just hit you as like, whoa, like where is this coming from in a kid's show? A personal favorite of mine is from the song that plays in the last episode, and it's the phrase, "You and I will always be back then." This phrase helped me through the loss of my dad whenever I was 19 and all of the other major life changes that I went through at that age. And it just helped me accept and understand that, yeah, like while it is unforgiving that good things end, you can take comfort in the fact that at some point in time, you guys are still together and you still exist in the same space, and like time isn't linear, so there is somewhere that you guys are still together, and that brought me a lot of comfort. And I personally learned so much from these episodes. I think it could really help kids get through some harder situations that you might not know how to explain or how to talk to them about it, or maybe they don't even want to talk to you about it. Maybe it's just easier for them to receive that lesson from something playful and fun and not have a sit down conversation with their parents. Sometimes that's just easier. So the last show piece of media thing on my list is Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is another great throwback from my childhood that I didn't really even watch as a kid. It was another one of those things that I would just kind of watch it if it was on in the background, but it wasn't something that I was keeping up with. And it definitely wasn't something on my radar that I wanted to rewatch or even watch fully for a first time. But my husband made me. He was like, no, we are watching this together. And he even made his roommates watch it when he was living in California. And so I was like, okay, well, I like cartoons and I don't want to watch war movies. So let's do it. Let's watch this cartoon together. And oh my God, that was the best decision I ever made. Like, in the way that Adventure Time is kind of a hidden gem, this show has some of the greatest moments of cinematography, of writing, and character arcs that I personally have ever experienced. I do like the added bonus that it's like, I think I like things that are a lot deeper than they look surface level, so maybe that's why I connected with it so much. But the characters are complex, and each of them have flaws that they work through the entire series, and you see them learn and become better and grow, and it's not like some of these very vanilla surface level characters that we're seeing now. One of my favorite YouTubers, Master Samwise, has an entire series dedicated to analyzing some of the deeper parts of this show. And personally, I almost always agree with his takes. He explores like the masculinity, femininity of some of the characters and why they feel so easy to connect with and so real almost. I think he kind of references the She-Hulk movie about how like she's just a Hulk and she's immediately good at everything, whereas like Katara, the main one of the main characters in this show, she has to struggle and learn, and not everything just comes naturally for her, and that's still okay because she's still growing and learning. And then he has a video completely about the last, like the final boss scene, and why it's so beautiful and why it's so captivating. And every time I watch that, I cry and I get chills and I'm like, this is so awesome, because it is. Like, even though it's a kids show, it is literally one of the best pieces of media that I've ever watched. I'm telling you, the story is incredible and digestible, but it's also playful and funny, and it's something that younger kids are gonna still enjoy, but they might not see the depth behind it at the time. And a secret life hack that I have is like nonchalantly putting specific episodes on when you know something is going on in their life that maybe they don't really want to talk to you about it, or maybe they don't want to talk to anybody about it, and they just, you know that they're processing something. So you put on this one specific episode that coincides with what they're going through, sort of, and it might just give them some perspective or some advice. And it's a lot easier to take advice not from your parents sometimes. That's just how it is. And that's part of being a parent, is realizing that just because you say something doesn't mean your kid is going to listen to it. And sometimes because you say something, that means your kid is not going to listen to it. Kids learn and communicate through play, and in my opinion, cartoons are kind of play by proxy. So yes, it's digestible and the story is also funny, but it's nuanced enough that you can enjoy it alongside them. Okay, I think I have yapped long enough about all these things that I love so much. I hope that this list was helpful and maybe even spark some ideas for ways that you can connect with your kids. So whether you're like a lifelong nerd like me, or you're just dipping your toes into this world and you just kind of want something to connect to your kids with, I really believe that sharing stories and games and imagination is one of the important and special ways to bond. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to stick around and leave a like or a comment. I'd love to hear what books and games you grew up with and what you are planning on passing the torch to your kids with. Just drop them in the comments so that we can raise this little village together. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and watching, and I will see you next week. Okay, cool, love you, bye.